Why we were chosen. God in His wisdom selected this group of men and women to be purveyors of His goodness. He selected them through whom to bring about this phenomenon. He went not to the proud, the mighty, the famous, or the brilliant. He went instead to the humble, to the sick, and to the unfortunate. He went right to the drunkard, the so-called weakling of the world. The mighty hath said to us, Unto your weak and feeble hands I have entrusted a power beyond estimate. To you has been given that which has been denied the most learned of your fellows. Not to the scientists and statesmen, not to the wives and mothers, not even to my priests or ministers have I given this gift of healing other alcoholics which I entrust to you. It must be used unselfishly. It carries with it great responsibility. No day can be too long. No demands upon your time can be too urgent. No case be too pitiful, and no task too hard, and no effort too great. It must be used with tolerance, for I have restricted its application to no race, creed, and no denomination. Personal criticism you must accept or expect. Lack of appreciation will be common. Ridicule will be your lot. Your motives will be misjudged. You must be prepared for adversity, for what men call adversity is the ladder you must use to ascend the rungs towards spiritual perfection. And remember, in the exercise of this power, I shall not exact from you beyond your capabilities. You are not selected because of exceptional talents, and be careful always that success attends your efforts, not to ascribe to personal superiority that to which you can lay claim only by the virtue of my gift. If I had wanted learned men to accomplish this mission, the power would have been entrusted to the physician and the scientist. If I had wanted eloquent men, there would have been many anxious for the assignment, for talk is the easiest use of all talents with which I have endowed mankind. If I had wanted scholarly men, the world is filled with better qualified men than you who would be available. You were selected because you have been the outcasts of the world, and your long experience as drunkards has made or should make you humbly alert to the cries of distress that come from the lonely hearts of alcoholics everywhere. Keep in mind the admission you made on the day of your professional in AA, namely that you are powerless, and it was only with your willingness to turn your life and will unto my keeping that relief came to you. Amen.
Thanks, Steve. That was a reading I heard at an anniversary at the Nova Alano years ago. And that particular video that we just watched is some of us have been incarcerated with little, in jail, prison, whatever it may be. But there's no more of a painful incarceration than a self-made prison in between your own ears. See, the key is that we are so used to being locked up between our two ears that we don't know what to do with ourselves once we're sober, and God calls us to a different thing. But the key is that we got to really understand that we are privileged people to have another chance. And at the end of the day, in the darkest part of my addiction, the one thing I did ask God for is just give me one more shot at this recovery thing. And here we all sit tonight. Because, one thing that you need to understand, that I understand, is the fact is that there are no limitations to God. We are engulfing on a journey called the 12 Steps. And a lot of you, I really appreciate your honesty in the last couple of weeks, that a lot of us have really never worked the steps. And some of us have been to 5-10 treatments. We maybe worked the steps our way, and maybe the majority of the time it was lip service. And one thing I've learned is it's not my program, it's the program. It's not my way, it's the way. He is the way. God is the way. Jesus is the way. And I've got somebody to show me the way. Because my best thinking got me here. And let me tell you, I'm very creative when my back's against the wall. I can come up and concoct any story whatsoever. And that's what I love about Serenity Village, is that we've been there and done that. So as you concoct your stories, And it just ain't gonna work. You cannot pull one over on a person that their whole life has pulled one over. But who have I really pulled one over on? Myself. Because in my treatments and my incarcerations, I mean, the people that I manipulated weren't in there with me. And it's so important to understand, and as you know, my wife, she's a prayer warrior, and every morning she gets up, she rolls out of bed onto her knees, and I admire that, and I wish I could be more like her, and we need people like that in our lives, because I can tell you, when I was in the backseat of the cop car, I prayed. When I thought I was going to overdose, I prayed. And the key is that we know. So my thing in the morning, and I don't know if I just don't want to get out of bed or what my deal is, but a lot of mornings I sit there and I don't move. I have the privilege. Mike comes down three days a week. He's about getting ready to publish a devotional. And Mike was a resident and my roommate 10 years ago in Teen Challenge. And never in his wildest dreams would he think a publisher would come to this meeting on a Tuesday night and sign him on a book deal on what he's learned in these meetings over 10 years. You never know what God's going to do. But as I'm sitting there this morning and I was reflecting on the message on Sunday, there's two scriptures that came to mind. Romans 8:28, it says that God causes everything to work together for the good for those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. And we've been talking about purpose a lot over the last several weeks, and a lot of us are still twisted and not knowing what it is. And in James 1:2-4, it says, "Consider it pure joy." This isn't on your sheets. When you face trials of many kind, I mean, facing things is so foreign to us. We're used to running. How many runners do I got in the house? Next time you run away from something good, look behind you. There's nobody chasing you. I don't know why you're even running. You might as well slow your roll down and start walking. Because people are fed up with us. And the key is that when I was meditating this morning on these two scriptures, we talked about purpose last week in this meeting. Your purpose is not to get back what you lost this recovery. That's not your purpose. You've done that before, and you still got drunk. Still got out. Your purpose is to get to know the one who knows. But I want to really specifically talk to you quickly about Romans 8:28, because it says God causes everything to work together for the good. Now, God causes that. Now, in James, it says that in this particular scripture, it says, let perseverance do his work so you can become mature and lack nothing. Now, how many times in our recovery did we try to cause something to happen? How many times did we not let God do it and we tried to do it? How many of us have gotten ahead of God in our recovery, tried to force the outcome, which was our outcome, not God's? It had to do with family, finances, legal, jobs, relationships, where just because you think it looks good, it doesn't end up to be good. Because you're trying to cause it to happen and to work together. You can't cause the destruction of your past to work together for the good. Only God can do that. So quit trying to do His job. Because we're talented people. We will try to cause and make stuff happen. And then we need to let perseverance so we can mature. I was a 35-year-old, 10-year-old when I got here. And I know that about myself. So, quit trying to, your purpose is not to get back what you lost. And I hear this said a lot in meetings and groups. I just want it to be the way it was. If you want it to be the way it was, that's what got me here, for God's sakes. You must not have been that happy with the bottle in your mouth. See, that's why we got to do that. So this past Sunday we talked about perseverance, and it says in Hebrews 12:1-2, the 12 steps is what God has marked out for us. I don't care if you tell me that AA doesn't work or NA doesn't work. God knew there were so many stubborn Christians. I don't even know if you are a Christian if you don't believe the 12 steps work. Because why would God institute celebrate recovery for us stubborn Christians? And the key is that it says that the 12 steps is what God has marked out for us. And now it says in verse 12, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, God sends people to you to help you. Now, it's up to you if you want to, if you're stubborn, if you're closed-minded, if you're unwilling, well, I know what I need to do. That is the most dangerous statement an addict or an alcoholic can make, or a gambler. I know what I need to do. Whenever you use the word I
we can help you recover. And it's very important. Now, the we in AA is the same as the we in the body of Christ. It's the same thing. See, no matter how you want to digest it, but it says, since you're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, Serenity Village is a program with 85 beds. Over half the 85 residents have been sober over a year. There's many graduates that are in the house tonight. People that are willing to get back. These are people that don't have to help you. Don't get paid to help you. I mean, here's how I used to roll in my addiction. I'd go, Hazelden, great program. Great program. We got many success stories from that program that are in this house tonight. But then Hazelden would line me up with psychologists or psychiatrists. I would pay, because my insurance at the time would not take this guy, because he was supposed to be the best in the world. And he was good. But I would pay this guy $150 an hour to lie to him. To lie to him. So I would say and challenge each and every one of us tonight, since you're here, why not give it a shot? Since God loved you enough to give you another chance, why not work the steps? Since you're not sitting in a basement in some rundown place trying to figure out how to get free tonight. You're in a nice church building around great people. God loved you that much. Thank God you're not in cell block D trying to get free. You know, I mean, and God loved you. So since you're here and you're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, it says, let us throw off everything that hinders us and the sin that so easily entangles us. The sin that so easily entangles us is not addiction. It's complacency. It's dishonesty. It's pride. That's the sin that entangles you long before you or I use. So that's what we need to get away. Humility is what we need, and that will give us the willingness to go through the next 12 weeks. And we need to throw off everything else and just get busy. And now it goes on to say, let us run with perseverance the race of Mount Park. Now, you may think that you're on a track that's good for you. There is only one way to do this. And that's the race that has been marked out for you and I. It's the way to do it. It's the only way to do it. It's got a proven track record. There's a cloud of witnesses filling in this room right now that have freedom. And if you want what they have, you have to do what they do. That's the race marked out for you. Bottom line. So you got to get rid of, which is a fourth and a fifth and a sixth and a seventh, what is hindering you. You know, how many times in my recovery? 11 treatments. Oh, I'm good, I'm sober, I'm good, I'm 30 days, 60 days into my recovery, and then I come back. The depression comes back. The anxiety comes back. The pink cloud is burst. My anger is back. My unforgiveness is back. My resentments are back. My fear is back. So it's so important. It says, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. Now, no matter what your faith is, you better be fixing your eyes on something other than you to get you out of the mess that you created. And for me, I fix my eyes on Jesus because He's a pioneer. You know what? When you fix your eyes on Jesus, He'll send some faithful pioneers with you. I got some faithful pioneers in this house tonight that are willing to work with people like me. That they don't have to. So whoever's willing to work with you, be grateful. Do what they say and suggest because they don't have to. Trust me, this is your season. This is your time to go through the steps. But it says, for the joy set before Him, endured the cross. You're going to have to endure some things. Like Mike said, it ain't easy. He put it down. He was done with it. That's normal for us. That's okay. Just keep moving now. He confessed it with his mouth. James 5:16. Now he's going to get a healing, the Bible says. So the bottom line is, when you think you got it, you just missed it. You know, we are not going to co-sign anything. Any good sponsor in NA or AA is going to call you on the stuff. But in order to get free, you're going to have to endure some things. Now, you can endure some things in your recovery. You endured plenty in your addiction. You didn't just endure things in your addiction. Your family endured it with you too. So in order to get free, you need to endure. But you can do that. I can do that. I did it on the streets, scorning the shame. Yeah, it's going to be difficult to look at some things during these steps. But you better know who you are so you can see yourself coming. No matter how free you are, you still got flesh. And that flesh, it comes for nothing, the Bible says. So we got to man up, woman up. We can't be children in this thing. We got to be just almost as tough as we thought we were on the streets. In our recovery, we're just a bunch of wimps. We want to quit, we want to stop, we don't want to listen, we want to take our ball and go home. The Bible says when I was a child, I talked, reasoned, thought like a child. I got to man up, I got to grow up. I mean, I can't be a 35-year-old like I was. And it's a process. I mean, growing up is a process, and it takes time. And that's what it's saying now in 1 Timothy 6:11. Working the steps is pursuing a godly life. I see a lot of people in this program pursuing reconciliation before God. Even though God is a God of reconciliation. How many times have you gotten your family back or your job back and lost it again because you thought it was an outside job and it's an inside job? See, it's very important to understand that the very thing it says, but you, Timothy, are a man of God. Get around people that are truly men and women of God. So run from these evil things. I don't have time for that garbage anymore. I don't drive down Broadway anymore to make sure everybody's okay. I don't go to the bar to watch the Super Bowl. I don't go to my old dope dealer's house to see if he's okay. No. If I hang out in the barber shop, I'm going to get my hair cut. Now be very careful of even jobs or anything you take. Don't think once you got your little baby toe in the water, pretty soon you're going to be ankle and waist deep, and then you sit there with that dumb look on your face like I had for many years. Well, what happened here? Well, you didn't listen. But it says, pursue righteousness and a godly life. You know, evaluate your purpose. You know, and it says, along with faith, love, perseverance, and gentleness. Just like I said earlier, you are so hard on yourself. Give yourself a break. Since you're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, there is no program out there like Serenity Village. And I take a lot of, I'm very happy with the people that God brings here. But since you're surrounded by these type of people, which you're one of, evidently God must think you're something important. He put you here.
That's right.
I mean, don't look as the glass half empty. He knows there's something that He put inside you. So we need to, suffering is part of working the steps. But we don't want to suffer in our recovery. And if you learn how to grow through it to get to it, it says suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. Now, you're going to find as we work these steps that your challenge is not addiction, it's a character challenge. We don't have character. We have talent. Our talent has taken us places in life, but our character can't sustain us where it takes us. And you're going to learn that as we go through these steps, but suffering is not easy. I mean, I've been doing Serenity Village for 10 years. It has not been easy, but the rewards far outweigh the suffering. Either way, you're going to suffer. You're going to suffer in your addiction, or you're going to have to go through some suffering in your recovery. And that's just part of the deal. And it says now, and that's working this out. Oh my God, there's 60 whatever questions? You ever gone to jail before? How many questions do they ask you? Ever been interrogated by the DEA before? They ask more than 67 questions. See, either I'm going to answer those type of questions, or I'm going to answer these type of questions. See, and it's so important to grasp the fact that, I got a character issue. I mean, when I got here, I didn't have much hope, but today I stand here a dopeless hope fiend. See, in 2 Corinthians 12:12, we need to surround ourselves with the right people. You never rise above the company you keep. If you're a game player, you're going to hang around game players. People that are serious are going to intimidate you. If people are playing games around you, there's something about you where they know that you've still got that side of you in you. When you walk in the room, people should stop swearing. When you walk in the room, they should stop lusting. They should stop lying. See, it's so important to understand that we have a character dilemma here. 2 Corinthians says we need to surround ourselves with the right people. It says, I persevered in demonstrating among you the mark. You got it. That's the attraction rather than promotion. If you want what they have, do what they do. So, people that have gone through the suffering, people that have worked the steps, people that are on the other side of the endurance, people that walk through their shame and guilt to get freedom. Those are the people that you want to surround yourself here. People can't give you what they don't have, so stop looking for information from certain people that ain't got it. But a lot of us go to people knowing, because we learned that from our parents, if Dad says no, I'm going to Mom. You should see how all these guys, they always come to me when they want a weekend pass because they know I'm going to say yes and Jack will say no. But it says now in Hebrews 11:27, we have to go the distance distance ourselves from certain things. By faith, he left Egypt, not fearing the... See, how many people have stuck in a relationship too long? Because you'd rather be with someone than no one at all. See, it takes faith to make changes. It takes faith to cut out old relationships. And one thing when I was reading step 1 and step 2, reservations. Well, how many of you have purposely not thrown away the dope dealer's number 6 months into your recovery? Do it, you better raise your hand. I think you got a tattoo on the back of your neck. But what it says, we just meditate on those things, and it's so important to understand that we cannot do that, and we need to understand totally what God is trying to do in our lives. And it says, I know your deeds, your hard work, and your perseverance. I know that you cannot tolerate wicked people. There's certain things that you should not tolerate in your recovery. You need to be around tested and tried people. People that know what the program is. People that know who God is. People that are not going to co-sign. But it says, by faith he left Egypt, not fearing that. I am going to lose favor with people long before I lose favor with God. And sometimes it's hard to leave situations, but you need to leave certain people. You need to set them to the side, even if it's family for a season. It says in Hebrews 10:36, in order to receive the promises, you have to persevere. It says you need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God. Next week we're talking about step 3, turning your life over to the care of God as you understand Him. The key is that you need to understand, I need to understand that you're not going to walk in God's will unless you know perseverance. That means perseverance in answering all the questions, being honest. There is no stupid question except the one that's not asked. So come here with your questions that are confusing. This might be your last opportunity to answer them. You might be gone tomorrow and we never see you again. It's just like that. It's just like that. I got a call from Faribault Prison today, collect. 3 times he called me yesterday. Boy, he wished he was sitting here tonight. And I've worked and known this brother for many years, but it says you will receive what has been promised. So you work the steps, you're going to get the promises of the steps. God is not going to lose His reputation over you. It says in 1 Timothy 4:16, we need to be conscious of everything we think or do. It says, watch your life and doctrine closely. Do your meditations. That's why we went through the 28-day challenge. Do your 24-hour day. Do your Jesus calling. Do your proverb a day. You've got to watch what you do, because if you're not anchored in that stuff, before you know it, you're going to be drifted out. You won't even know how you got there. Life still may be good. Family still may be good. But you're like 50 yards away where you should be in life, and you're in a dangerous spot. You don't even know it. And when the Holy Spirit convicts you to get back in the middle of what God has called you to do, if you don't do it still, you're going down. Thank God that God's got grace and mercy and works with knuckleheads like me. He watches me drift. He gives me a warning. But how many times in my addiction did I not take heed to that warning? And I said, no. I'm good, because things seem to be good. Next thing you know, everything's gone. And that's why it says, watch your life and your doctrine closely. Persevere in them. It's not going to be easy. Because if you do, you will save both yourself and your hearers. God didn't free you just to get free. He freed you to free other people. Why are you free versus somebody else that's stuck right now? Why did God love you so much? And He knows what He put in you. He knows there's champion in you. And the key is that we need to pursue God. We need to pursue the steps. We need to pursue our program. And it's not just about me being saved, but if you do that, you'll get saved. See, sometimes I've been doing this for 10 years with the addition of the church over the last year and a half. I don't know. Some days I'm just preaching to myself because it's benefiting me. God knew I had to be a pastor due to the fact that I'm probably more sick than any of you. So when I get to study, I get to preach, I get to teach, I get to work with people, it is a great benefit to me. And people that know what I used to be like know that. But there's benefits to the hearers. And it's not just the hearers. Mark Thomas, come up here for a second. So now we've been talking about purpose, right? Now, Mark and I work together in a painting company right now. He might be listening to those voices his whole day. I don't want to be a painter the rest of my life. I don't want to do this physical work. That just happens. We're people. But you saw how God used Mark as a painter this past Sunday. Mark's purpose is not a painter, even though he's doing a phenomenal job. Mark's purpose was for him to meet that client and invite those women to church. That's his purpose. The Bible says you're not working for men, you're working for the Lord, even though you need to respect the authority of whoever's over you in your profession. He tasted his purpose on Sunday. And let me tell you something. If Mark is not grateful for his existing job, God will not elevate him. Now, Mark can go out and cause himself to get another job. He will not let God do his work. And because he's talented, he can go places. But he's just setting himself up for a greater fall. See, it's so important to understand, thank you, Mark, that the key is that it's not just about you. It's about the people that are around you during the day, on Tuesday night, at your houses, at the apartments. It says in Revelation 2:19, it says, what has changed since your last attempt at recovery? I have people that have come and gone out of this program for 10 years. I see them do good for 60 days. And then they're right back to where they were in their other recovery. And I can see relapse coming. A lot of times I can't tell them anything. But if you just relapse, I'm going to ask you, and people are going to ask you, what are you going to do differently this time? You know, yeah, you were doing some things right. But it says, I know your deeds, your love, your faith, your service, and your perseverance, that you are now doing more than you did at first. See, people of purpose and perseverance do more year after year. They don't sit back, as the big book says, on their laurels and rest on them. No, God's got an open field for each and every one of us that is He's free to get. And you cannot keep what you have unless you give it away. God spared you from your alcoholism and your addiction so you can spare other people. And in order to spare other people, we need to learn how to persevere. And here's a statement that I use often. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So if you're here and you're working the same program that you did before your relapse, you're going to relapse. If you've never worked the steps and you're all great, gravy, jobs are good, money's back in my pocket, my family will see me again, she actually lets me come home on the weekends, and you're still working the same program you did before your relapse, your party's about ready to end. And the enemy, the devil, the addict will allow you, let me tell you this here now, the enemy will allow you to go a little further this time just to make more humiliation out of you. He would allow you not to relapse 6 months more. Because 6 months more in your recovery, you're going to have that many more things to lose. And it's so important that we grasp it. So if you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always got. Now we're going to go through step 2. Everybody hold up their sheets. Make sure you're not sleeping. This is a critical step. Step 2, and if you've got your highlighters, you want to make notes, go ahead and do it. It says, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. A lot of times for people like me, I just got to come. No matter what my faith is, I just got to go to meetings. I just got to get to church. We just got to show up. Showing up is half the battle, because if you're anything like me, you're trying to talk yourself out of not going the whole time. Now, I hear people say to me all the time, I can't come, I got a toothache. I got a cracked tooth and my back, I can hardly walk, and I'm still here. Because if I had crack to go get, I'd limp to the dope house. Blizzard, I can't drive. Give me a break. I'll put off my snowshoes and I'm going to get my rock. No different than you and I. We're the same. So a lot of the victory is just showing up. And it says, we came to. So for a lot of us that have just come out of relapse and shame and guilt that goes with it, you got to come to. The fog has to lift. You've got to start to have hope and dreams. And it says, we come to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. That's where I see a lot of people in recovery trying to get their outside world straightened out from their insanity. They think the insanity is all the wreckage of their past from their addiction. No, the insanity is in between your 2 ears. You've done what I've done. You've gotten it all back, and you were still insane. Still full of shame. Still full of guilt. Smile on your face, pretending that you're okay. You're one thought away from mass destruction. Living and walking on the sand, and that's what step 2, it says, we came to believe means it's a process. It's a process. It says, step 1 strips us of the illusions about our addiction. You know, you never should forget how bad it really was. And if you need a reminder, ask your family. Ask your kids, ask your mom and dad how bad you really were. See, my mom still gets nervous when I act certain ways. She has every right to be nervous. In the flesh, I'm a drug addict. In the spirit, I'm free. Who the Son set free is free indeed. Don't ever think that you're above anything. I just heard that girl that I used to know said, never, 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 never. I saw her the other week. She's lost 70 pounds shooting at me. It says step 2 gives us hope for recovery. I mean, hope is a powerful, powerful word. To have hope again. You know what it's like not to have hope. You know what it's like. And God gave you another chance. It says the pain and insanity with which we have been living are unnecessary. You don't have to be miserable. It's a choice. You don't have to be full of shame and guilt. It's a choice. God didn't do what He did with His Son Jesus, so you have to be miserable. It's unnecessary. You just choose to be miserable. You just choose to be angry. You just choose to be resentful. It's a choice. Now the step 4 will deal with all that if you're willing to work it. But it says it's unnecessary, says step 2. They can be relieved in time. Now that really stinks for me. In time, I want relief right now. That's why I do dope. That's why I drink. That gives me the instant relief, but the devil never tells me where it's going to take me. So it means in time, that's what we're going to talk about on Sunday, is patience. In time we will learn. So don't give up on the process. Just because Mikey put the step down doesn't mean he's a failure. But I can tell you, years ago in this addiction, he probably wouldn't have been here tonight. He just would have thrown up his hands. See, that's progress. So it says in time we will learn to live, but a lot of us never give this program a shot because we're not willing to wait for the time and we're not willing to work the steps. But it says in time we will learn to live without them through working the 12 steps. It says the second step fills the void. How many things in your life, even in your recovery when you were sober, have you tried to fill that void that only God can fill? Only God can fill the void. It's called the God hole. He belongs, we're in the hole, not anything else. Not a woman, not a man, not a job, not a cash. Nothing. Shame doesn't even belong in that hole. Guilt doesn't belong in that hole. And the key is that, how much energy did I spend in my life, even before my addiction, as a kid in my teenage years, to fill that void of emptiness there? A lot of energy went in there. And that's what it's saying here, is to fill the void when we finish the step up. As we approach step 2, we begin to consider that maybe, just maybe, sometimes you just got to rest on maybe. It's okay that you're not thoroughly convinced right now. Just keep persevering by maybe. Maybe this will work. Maybe that maybe will get you here. Maybe if you're a parent tonight, and you don't know if this is your daughter or son are doing the deal, well, maybe they will. Go to bed with victory and maybe. And that's what it's saying. That just maybe there's a power greater than ourselves, a power capable of healing the hurt. You use because you're hurt. And hurt people. Calming our confusion. What does that do? It shuts the confusion down. And restoring our sanity. It says, we read the basic text and found that our insanity was defined there as repeating the same mistakes and expecting different results. We could certainly relate to that. Who can relate to that? You're working the same program before you relapse. That's what's happening. After all, how many times have we tried to get away with something we have never gotten away with before? Each time telling ourselves it will be different this time. That's insane. How many people have done that? There was a time that I relapsed and I went out for the morning paper at 6 a.m. before work. I was convinced I was going to use during that afternoon. I was convinced that I'd be home with the wife and kids for dinner. They didn't see me for 6 months and I showed up in handcuffs. But you couldn't have told me that was going to happen. I didn't believe that would actually happen. And that's where step 1 is so critical. You got to work that. And it says, some of us resisted this step because we thought it required to be religious. I'm here to tell you that that is an excuse. I don't know if I believe in Jesus. Well, okay, that's fine. Just keep coming. But why would God put you in a faith-based program? I don't force anything on anybody. Anybody that's a Christian leads by example, and somebody should walk up to you saying, what's different about you? Why are you smiling? Why are you helping people? Why are you taking time for people like me? It says the beauty of the second step is revealed when we begin to think about a higher power, what a higher power can be. And then I thought about Serenity Village. How many people came to this program and wanted nothing to do with maybe church or God? You're lying. You didn't want, you didn't believe in God, or thought God was something that He wasn't. And that's what it's saying here. It says, we are encouraged to choose a power that is loving, caring, and most importantly, able to... So that's what you see in the people here. You come to our church on Sunday, it's like a church you've never been to. But if you're closed-minded, you use any excuse that says, the second... let me ask you a question with the limited amount of hands that were just raised. Please. If you really believed in God, then why are you serving Him? If you really believe in God, why are you reading your Bible that you believed in God when you got here? Why is your Bible not being picked up if you believe in God? I'm not saying it's a shame or guilt you. I'm just calling it what it is. I don't think you're somewhere you're not. That's a dangerous place to be. I knew God, knew of God. I didn't know God. Knowing God's a whole different ballgame to know what He can do. The second step does not say we came to believe in a power greater than ourselves. It says we came to believe that a power, not in a power. You're believing what God can actually do in your life, not believing that there's a God. What's the sense of believing there's a God if there's nothing that God can do to help you? And that's God's character. It says, no, we believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore sin. As we stay clean and continue to work this step, we discover that no matter how long our addiction is gone and how far our insanity has progressed, that there's no limit to the ability of power greater than ourselves to restore our sanity. It's an inside job. Now it's talking about hope. The hope we get from working this step 2 replaces the desperation in which we came into the program. It says in the second paragraph, however, something remarkable occurred to us when we sat in our first few meetings. How many people in 10 years are coming here and saying, man, you're talking about me. I'm talking about me too, because we're just alike. I love being around people that can relate how sick and twisted I really am. I'm just like you, in need of a Savior. In need of somebody to straighten me out. And it says this, it says, however, something remarkable occurred to us as we sat in our first few meetings. There were other addicts that had used drugs just as we did, addicts who are now clean. We believed in them, we knew we could trust them. When somebody speaks your language, let me ask you another question. What if somebody that is still using, God will call you to save? And they'll see you free. And they will instantly believe in God because they know what you used to be like. There is no greater fulfillment on this planet than that. It says addicts like ourselves, we're staying clean and finding freedom. It's much more than just staying clean. It's finding freedom. But most of us first experience the feeling of hope. Maybe I do have a shot at this. Our hope is renewed throughout our recovery. Each time something new is revealed to us about our disease, the pain of the realization is accompanied by a surge of hope. No matter how painful the process of demolishing our denial may be, something else is being restored in its place within us. Even if we don't feel like we believe in anything, we do believe in the program. We believe that we can be restored to sanity even in the most hopeless times, even in the most sickest areas. It says insanity is a loss of perspective and a sense of proportion. For example, we might think that our personal problems are more important than somebody else's. I love what Sue said 2 weeks ago after Gina died because of her addiction. She said, if I put my problems in the pot with everybody else's problems, I'd probably take mine back out. And that's from a mother who just lost their daughter because of addiction. so important to understand what it's saying. It says, our lives get out of balance. Some obvious example of insane thinking are the belief that we can stay clean on our own. Or the belief that using drugs was only our problem. That everything else is fine now that we're clean. It ain't fine. You need somebody to tell you, we need to change. We need to grow. It says, we make the same mistakes over and over again, even when we're fully aware of what the results will be. Perhaps we're hurting so bad. Now this is why we use right here. Perhaps we're hurting so bad that we don't care about the consequences. How many people have used knowing that they'd be homeless? How many people have used knowing that they go to jail? How many people would use knowing your parents would kick you out? How many people would use knowing that your wife or husband said, if you use and drink one more time, you will not see your children, and you used anyway? That's insane. But I didn't. Knowing I have to go take that UA, I used anyway. Knowing that they'd see my bank account, I gambled anyway. And that's what it's saying here. I can relate to that. That gives me hope. And I didn't care about the consequences. Or we figure that acting on an obsession will somehow be worth the price. Whew. You know what the price was? It shut me down. Shut the confusion down. Shut the shame down. And I was willing, no matter if my kids would be willing to see me again, I'd still use. Not because I was a bad person and I didn't want to see my kids, because it's cunning, baffling, and powerful. And it'll always take you farther than you want to go. One's too many, NA says, and 1,000 is never enough. Now it talks about a power greater than ourselves. And you're going to start tripping when I start teaching going forward, because it doesn't talk about a power greater than yourself after this step. It talks about God. If God knew we're so stubborn and close-minded, if He said God in step 2, we would quit. That's why when you all raised your hand and said, yeah, I'm good, I believe in God. Maybe you think you do. And there's nothing wrong with that. The key is that you've got to get to know who God really is and the character that He is. And what He really has for you. It says, each one of us comes to recovery with a whole history of life experiences. They should write a novel on it. That history will determine a large degree of the kind of understanding we develop, a power great. Now, can you imagine being me? The pastor of this program? It's like preaching to skeptics. And I love it. Because each and every individual in this room had an experience with God that wasn't of God before they got here. And that's what the literature is saying here. That depending on how ugly your religion or spirituality was, that just means you've got a long way to go. And when you get there, there'll be no stopping you. Just don't quit. Just don't quit. And what it's saying here is, in this step, we don't have to have a lot of specific ideas about the nature, identity of the higher power. The sort of understanding will come later. That's why you got to wait. It'll make sense someday, even though it's confusing now. How powerful does a power greater than yourself have to be? The answer to that question is simple. Our addiction was a negative power, was without a doubt greater than we were. Our addiction led us down a path of insanity and caused us to act differently than we wanted to behave. We need something to combat that, something at least as powerful as our addiction. Now, let me just clarify that. If God is just as powerful as your addiction, He ain't God. God is much more powerful than your addiction. He's the ultimate power. And that's why I love Serenity Village. We don't water it down. It's that some of us may have a very clear idea about the nature of power greater than ourselves, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that fact. See, you know, if I was more closed-minded, I would have a hard time teaching this step because it talks about a higher power, not Jesus. Okay? As a pastor. Some pastors might say, why you shouldn't be teaching like that. You shouldn't be saying higher power. You should be talking. You know what? You know what the Spirit told me? You teach where they can understand. If you could get them to the lake, they're going to drink. And if all I'm doing is shoving Jesus down your throat, the majority of you, or half of you, would probably leave. It's got to be something other than you. It can be anything at this point, but you're going to learn going forward. That it says, some of us have a very clear idea about the nature of power greater than ourselves, and we're absolutely nothing wrong with that fact. So wherever you are is okay. Just don't quit. It says, it works. How and why defines the term restoration as changing to the point of addiction and company, insanity, or not controlling your life. We find that just as our insanity was evident as a loss of perspective, a sense of proportion, so we see sanity in our lives when we begin developing the perspective that allows us to make better decisions. How many of you made poor decisions sober? I see it all the time. But then you blame your poor decisions on your addiction. But now you're sober still making the same decision. That's why the steps are so critical. We find that we have choices about how to act. We begin to have the maturity and wisdom to slow down and consider all. Boy, it's hard to slow me down. Hard to slow my mind down, but the steps help me with that. Wisdom to slow down and consider all aspects of the situation before acting. That's hard for an impulse artist, an instant gratification guy. I act and then think. How many times did I wish I would have thought before I acted? If we've been in recovery for some time, we may find that we have no trouble believing in a power greater than ourselves that can help us stay clean. But we must not have considered what restoration to sanity means to us beyond staying clean. Restoration to sanity is much more than being sober. And it says, as we grow in our recovery, it's very important the idea of meaning sanity also grows. That's the ism of alcohol. That's the fiend of dope. If you're still a fiend without the dope, you're still a fiend. If you're still an alcoholic without the alcohol. It's the ism, it's the fiend 2 to 12 deal with. It doesn't deal with the drug or the alcohol. 2 to 12 steps deal with the ism and the fiend. And it deals with your past, your present, and your future. It says, some of us have unrealistic expectations about restored sanity. We may think that we never get angry again, or that as soon as we start to work the step, we will behave perfectly all the time and have no more trouble with obsessions, emotional turmoil, or imbalance in our lives. That's what's so important about this community. We can understand, we can relate, we can help you, you can help us. Don't think that it's going to be perfect. Old habits die hard. It says, this description may seem extreme, but if we find ourselves disappointed with our personal growth and recovery, or the amount of time it takes to be restored to sanity, we may recognize some of our beliefs in this description. Most of us have found that we gain the most serenity by letting go of any expectations we may have on our recovery. Let me tell you, some of you that don't think you're progressing, the fact that you're sitting in a pew tonight is a miracle. The fact, when you're in it, you don't see it. And what it's saying here, the principle of open-mindedness is that we find the second step arises from the understanding that we can't recover alone. We need some kind of help. It continues with opening our minds and believing that help is possible for us. It doesn't matter what we have an idea on how this power greater than ourselves is going to help, just that we believe it's possible. Practicing the principle of willingness in the second step may become simply, at first we may just go to meetings and listen to other recovering addicts share about their experiences with this step. Then we may begin applying what we hear on our own recovery. Of course, we ask for our sponsor's guide. You have to have a sponsor. We can't just sit back and wait to feel a sense of faith when working step 2. You'll miss it. Just stay busy. Keep working. We have to work at it. One of the suggestions that we have worked for many of us is act as if you had faith. This doesn't mean that we should be dishonest with ourselves. We don't need to lie to our sponsor or anyone else about where we are with the step. We're not doing this to sound good or look good. Acting as if simply means living as though we believe in what we hope will happen. There's a lot of power in that. In the second step, it would mean living as though we expect to be restored. You get what you expect. If you expect to fail, you fail. If you expect to use again, you'll use again. If you expect to drink again, you can drink again. If you expect to get free, you're going to get free. If you expect that you might get some faith, you'll get some faith. The power of expectation is critical. And it says acting as if by going to meetings regularly and taking direction from our sponsor. Practicing the principle of trust may require now, a lot of us don't trust people. Overcoming a sense of fear about the process of being restored to sanity. Even if we're clean for a short time, we're probably already experienced some emotional pain as we've grown in recovery. We may be afraid that there will be more pain. In one sense, we're right about this. There will be more pain. Face that type of pain or face the pain of relapse. And that's why it's so important to grasp it. It says, none of it, however, will be more than we can bear. None of it will be borne alone. If we can develop a sense of trust in the process of recovery and a power greater than ourselves, we can walk through the painful times in our recovery. That's telling us it's going to be painful. We know that what's waiting on the other side will be more than superficial happiness. Have you ever been around a person in? I got them all over me. Superficial happiness. I'm good. I'm happy. You ever been around a person that's superficially grateful, knowing they're not? You know how a person's grateful? By their actions, their level of respect. I got the greatest respect I've ever gotten last night on the phone from a resident in this program. In 10 years. Arlene's been going to Free Indeed, reciting scriptures. She called me up yesterday and asked if it was okay for her to go to Feed My Starving. She's not even mandated to go to Perseverance. Wow. And asked me if it was okay if she could go. She knows where she's being led. And not that I want to control, but I mean, it's like this superficial facade that addicts and alcoholics have. And they say they're grateful, they say they're respectful, they say they're happy. And you can see it. You can see right through it. If you're miserable, say you're miserable. It says the principle of humility springs from our acknowledgement of the power greater than ourselves. It is a tremendous struggle for most of us to stop relying on our own thinking. Your thinking got you here. And begin to ask for help. But when we do, we have begun to practice the principle of humility, like Tracy was saying, found in the second step. As we get ready for step 3. We want to take a look at what we've gained by working step 2. Writing about our understanding of each step, we prepare to move on and help us internalize the spiritual principles connected to it. As we move on to step 3, a sense of hope is probably arising from our spirits. That's powerful. Even if we're not new in recovery, we just reinforced our knowledge that recovery, growth, and change are not possible without an inevitable when we make effort to work the steps. We can see the possibility of relief from a particular brand of insanity in which we most recently been gripped by our addiction. We probably already began to experience some freedom. We're beginning to be released with a blind pursuit of our insanity. We explored our insanity and have started to trust a power greater than ourselves to relieve us from having continued the same path. We're beginning to be freed from our illusions. We no longer have to struggle to keep our addiction secret or isolate ourselves and hide in our insanity. We have seen how the program has worked for others, and we have discovered that it is beginning to work for us as well. Though through our newfound faith, we achieved the willingness to move into action into step 3. Your insanity doesn't have to be your reality. God is bigger than anything you ever thought He could be. We'll take a 10-minute break. I love you.